topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Triversity Talk. I'm your host, Wendy Stewart, and very, very happy to be here with you tonight on Wednesday. Yes, it's Wendy on Wednesday. I often think that I'm going to call it Triversity Talk Wendy on Wednesday. But I hope you're all having a really great week. I am a summer girl, so I am absolutely loving this weather. And if you follow our website for the Triversity Center, we are located in Milford, Pennsylvania, and we actually have a center in town. Please stop on by and say hello. You can find out about our open hours there. And upcoming, we have game night happening soon. And again, the specific hours are on our website. But here's the most important thing I want to tell you all about. We are going to be hosting and partnering with Delaware Valley Action Group. We are hosting Pike County Pride. We've been doing this every year, and that is on August 24th. And it is from noon until 4 o'clock. And I know it seems like August 24th is a long way off, but guess what? In reality, it's not. I don't know about you, but this summer just seems to be flying by. It's making me totally crazy. But please mark August 24th on your calendar. We are going to have some wonderful youth actor performers from a local theatrical workshop, and our amazing drag performer will be Betty Buttons. Many of you are familiar with Betty. She's made quite a name for herself in the tri-state area, and she was our performer last year. So please make it a point to stop by and say hi. So I scour the far corners of the earth to find my guests, but that's not really true, but the far corners of the tri-state area. And I was at Howl Gallery 2 weeks ago, and they were having the visual portion of the Fresh Fruit Festival, which is a wonderful festival, really raising awareness of the arts in the LGBTQ plus community. And I love Howl Gallery. There was a wonderful poetry reading going on in this incredible artwork all around. And I had the opportunity to talk with the person that curated it, along with a friend of mine, Eva Mueller, who's an artist. And the person who I was talking to, I hadn't met before. And you know what? I always praise myself on knowing everybody, but I don't know everybody. So I was very impressed with this woman. And I'd like you to put your hands together for Heidi E. Russell. Thank you. And there you are.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for, first of all, being with us here tonight, Heidi. It's great having you. And, it was wonderful walking into Howl Gallery and looking at the art presentation on the wall. This was how many years with the Fresh Fruit Festival? Last couple of years?
Well, it's actually one of the longest standing festivals, LGBTQ plus theater festivals in New York. I first connected with them back in 2010, 2011.
Wow.
I was asked to curate two of their exhibitions, two consecutive years. And then I think they stopped doing the visual art because their spaces that they were using, partnering with, were smaller. And then the director, Louis Lepardi, gave me a call and said, "Hey, Heidi," because we've stayed in touch, of course, and says, "I have a little bit of budget left for the year. We need to get our grants for next year. Would you like to put something together?" So I was like, sure, I like to work. I'm pretty good working last minute, but don't tell anybody else that. So I said, yeah, absolutely. And so I reached out to Ava Mueller, who's a friend of mine for a long time. In fact, she was in the first exhibition I did with Fresh Fruit Festival back in 2010. That's where we first met.
And I just recently, I became aware of Ava, I want to say 3 years ago. How could you not become aware of Ava? She is the most colorful, gorgeous human being, just like, it's not even styling, it's a way of being, right? And
Absolutely.
amazing artist and an ethereal personality. And she recently, I don't even remember how it happened, but our paths started crossing. And I'm like, I adore this woman. And then I had been invited to the gallery because I was part of her wall of emotion. She calls it the Woe Wall.
Yes.
And there you were. And well, you know what? Like attracts like in this world, right?
Absolutely. And I just find that as we get older, the smaller the world gets, and how all of our paths cross and
Right.
intersect is just incredible. And I've been very fortunate to have followed, intersected with Ava's path and journey, and we keep collaborating,
Amazing.
and it was just an amazing experience doing this fast, but comprehensive, as you saw. Quite large
Extremely
exhibition.
comprehensive, and I have to tell you, extremely. I go to a lot of shows because I'm in New York. Yours was really entertaining. I completely enjoyed looking at the work on the wall. It was interesting. To me, art will move me if it makes me ask questions. And there was a lot of things there that made me ask questions. Her wall, of course, shooting people's emotions as she did. And there were a lot of people I knew on that wall, but it was also the other artwork. You had the work of a woman who has dealt with cancer and having those surgeries. And that's something people don't talk about, right? We don't talk about it. We certainly don't show it in art. And there it was, right in your face.
Absolutely. And that's been my method of operating since I started curating back in 2010. I'm a type of person that loves connecting with all different types of people, their backgrounds, cultures, experiences, ages, generations, etc. And when I put together a showcase or an exhibition, or even a gathering, a small gathering, I like to try to have as diverse of a arena involved as possible. And so not only the types of work, the disciplines, the media, but again, the in this case, gender identity, what's happening for people's lives, from cancer to a death to a celebratory wedding, across the board.
And that, Heidi, that was very obvious. I feel as a culture, and this is what turned me on about talking to you. I think as a culture, we sweep things under the rug that don't need to be swept under the rug. And a lot of shows I go to, you can look at it and say, oh, the artwork is great or whatever, but it doesn't often move you. What you put together at Howl Gallery was just very moving in a lot of ways. I found myself smiling. I found myself feeling sad, but all in all, I found myself having an emotion. And that's a very powerful thing to be able to do that by the kind of work that's curated on the walls.
Well, thank you for that wonderful feedback. I wouldn't have been able to do it without Ava. I have to give her props for really helping to put this together so quickly and bringing other artists who I had not known yet.
Right.
We did have some
she knows everybody.
She knows a lot of people as well. And here's also where some of the artists she brought in, I'm like, oh, I know that person from way back when. And we got reconnected. We had that crossover, and then brought in some other artists that each of us didn't know. And, one of the things that Ava said, and we received some, great feedback on, was just how, I want to say, just easily it came together. It was just the people that came, and then the artwork that they presented, and then we selected. We didn't really necessarily, because we're putting it together fast. We didn't really necessarily, we had a general theme, weren't quite sure how it was all going to come together, but it just all came together.
But it all came together as a person that came and saw it, and it brings to mind is you said you didn't have much time to put it together, and
Yes.
you used different ideas in art, and yet it all came together. So it makes me think often when I go to things that are overthought, somewhat, pardon the
Yeah.
word, constipated, rod up the butt. It's like I don't care, I don't care. I left that show and I was thinking about it. And I was so sorry because I was doing another event. I could not come to the end party, which I wanted to.
Oh, it's a shame, but yeah, it was just so fulfilling for me when I see how things come together, and how the artists who didn't know each other, many of them didn't know each other, got to know each other during the experience. And we had one artist. This was their first show ever.
Which piece was that?
That was Curtis. He had the hand with the feathers, the
Of
fist with
course, yeah.
feathers. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And we had every generation from someone in their 20s all up to my roommate here, who's a nonagenarian, if I pronounced that right.
Well, I don't know. I'm not good with pronunciations on things.
In their 90s. In their 90s.
What is it?
In their 90s. We had a couple of artists in their late 80s and their 90s.
But that is okay. But you just brought up an amazing point. I hear things all the time about generations, polarization, the younger people, Gen X, Gen Z, blah, 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 blah. Art just seems to transcend all of that.
Absolutely. But we still have to work at it, because as you've probably have seen, there's shows and exhibitions that are still somewhat homogeneous, around a certain topic or stage of career or whatnot. Right. We still have to work at it, and that's one of my goals. Is with every exhibition, every performance, the literature night that you saw, we had across the board, not only poetry to mystery to article storytelling, but also the different generations, different ethnicities. We had a Spanish-speaking poet who read in Spanish, and then his partner read it in English. So just bring together all these different diversity elements, and that's one of the feedbacks that we get is how how it gets people thinking about different areas that they may not have been exposed to, whether it's a different type of art form, right, or different generations. And that's another topic.
A brilliant way to do it. You build it. I realized you had storytelling and poetry going on that night, and then you had the art on the walls. And for the person that is the audience, it makes for a very fulfilling evening. And there's something very comforting also about it. Many of us right now are grabbing on as tight as we can to community because of the political environment, and not just in this country, really what's going on all over the world. Absolutely. Everywhere that you look. So isn't it wonderful to be able to go and see an exhibit that makes you ask questions, makes you wonder about the person that created the art? If you're listening to the poetry reading, think about what that person's saying. It opens up so many doors when you feel often in the world like, and I can get into this head too, and I'm an optimist, but sometimes it feels like door closing, door closing, door closing, door closing. And then I remind myself of who I am, and I'm all about open doors and windows. And I'm like, just don't buy the hype,
Absolutely. And we're surrounded by this hype, the intensities of topics and challenges. So the connectivity and beauty and the good that is indeed still happening all throughout our communities, throughout the world. We don't see that as much. And when you don't see that as much, it's easy to get bogged down and be and not as hopeful and whatnot. And having these community opportunities from our fans that come to the artists engaging themselves, having that community, whether it's for 1 hour, 5 minutes, 2 hours, for the month, having those different engagements is so important to keep ourselves healthy, grounded, and
right, to feed our soul. And certainly for someone like you, not only creating art but putting together that show with Ava, that had to be extremely satisfying for you.
Oh, it's beyond. I have told a couple of people the story over the last few days. At the opening, I've been told I'm a master connector, so I love connecting people. It's about as fulfilling to me as my own photography. I say when I'm on the streets shooting, I have this high. All the negativity, worries, etc., go out the door. It's the same when I see people connect, needs or offerings or just simple connection. And so, at one moment during the opening, I sat back and I was still sort of in the middle of the floor, but I realized suddenly I was beside myself. And I'm a big talker. I love getting in the mix, and all of a sudden, beside myself. And sometimes, you have the tendency to like, oh, I got to hurry up. I don't want to look like I'm, alone or whatever. And you go try to get with a group. But I took that moment and I just looked around and just saw all the different pockets of engagement and the smiles and the laughter and the studying of the artwork, 2-3 people looking at the piece of artwork and talking. I just said, this is it. This is why I do it. You see all that connectivity, engagement. And of course, the title of the exhibition was The Importance of Being Engaged.
And that is exactly what you created. You did what you set out to do. And the fact that you said you didn't have a lot of time to do it in, how incredibly successful. It's funny, I called tonight's segment Through the Female Eye, because the vibe I got in that room was very much that. And not everybody, there was one of the artists, a gentleman I spoke to, an older gentleman, he had the thing with the 2 mice, the sculpture.
Yes.
I forgot do you remember what that piece was called? I loved it, by the way.
Gosh, you're testing me here. I can't remember what it was called.
Well, it was
consensual or something
Yeah, it
like
looked
that.
like consensual. There were 2 mice were having consensual sex
Yes.
in a very odd position. I just love the execution of the mice. It was humorous. And again, yet another piece that you walked around and looked at. And it's wonderful when you get a chance to talk to the artist. I did get a chance to talk to him. But yeah, you created so much connectivity and so much happiness in that room. And you know what? That is a very, very powerful thing. Like you, I am also a master connector. I also gave myself another title, operations manager. I seem to be the one that everybody goes to try and critically think things out or fix the thing, or often, and I know you have this too, that you'll see the thing that's wrong, but you can't get everybody else on board with you.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I'm a Virgo and a perfectionist, so it's I've learned over time through the decades that to learn to let go of certain things. I still have a challenge here and there, but even if people are not getting on board per se of your vision, of that particular initial vision, I think it's important for people to understand. It took me a long time to learn this, that it's okay if it adjusts.
Right.
If you take that moment and see how that energy is and go with it, and then with the realization that that's the way it's supposed to go, and not fight and pigeonhole it. And of course, that can be a lesson for many topics and engagements.
You're talking about relying on your instincts, right? And that means letting go of the other stuff. And I've really gotten good now at relying on my instinct. It only took me how many decades? That's a shame. I'm disappointed that I didn't come upon it earlier,
Yes,
because
I hear you.
as artists, and I'm an entertainer, I would listen and value the opinions of other people, and often take direction from other people, even though in my heart of hearts, I'm like, why are they telling me to do that? That's totally incorrect. Now I have no problem blurting out to them, well, that makes absolutely no sense to me. Why are you asking me to do that? If they can
Yeah.
qualify it, and if I can understand what they're asking or of me, then I'll consider it. But I've become much more reliant, as I'm sure you have, on self, right? Reliant on self and giving your own answers a lot of the time. That's a good place to be.
Absolutely, and especially for women, and as we go through our life in different stages of this growth process and wisdom building, and sort of that balance of the yin and yang of self and other, and
Yeah.
knowing when to honor that part of self that needs to be honored and not back down, but at the same time be okay with portions of it, or sometimes even a whole different direction. Once you hear something from somebody else, you're like, oh wait, what, that is a really cool different direction.
Right.
Let's try that now,
Right. You'll
and
you'll consider it, because it can add to the thing, and you realize that
yeah.
it absolutely can add to the thing. Do you think, just from your experience in curating shows and being an artist yourself, that women have a different perspective as how they approach the visual arts?
That's a good question. I think in general, how women, feminine minded, uh, approach life in general, and how they view, and how we can interpret and be resilient and whatnot. And again, if that's you know uh, getting past society's norms and pressures of conforming, getting
Right.
past that, and then, like you say, listening to intuition, or listening to our eye per se, and being okay with that. And it's definitely a wider, you know I personally think it's a wider periscope, so to speak. We're looking at things
What?
wide,
Yeah, that's well put. Yeah.
and bringing in different elements, and understanding, and valuing different emotions. Um, you know, and there's feminine minded men who are tapped into that as well. Um,
Yes.
and of course women who struggle with that. So it's hard to generalize, but I think allowing for society to allow women's visions and voices rise and be heard can augment and heal a society in so many ways. I read somewhere once where it said, if a society or community has strong, healthy women as well as strong, healthy artists, you have a stronger and healthier community.
I love
And
that.
I think there's so many, examples of that all around the world, from small communities in Africa to urban centers. Um, and that's part of the reason I started International Women Artists Salon, which I founded in 2008, when I was around 40, realizing, okay, I've always been participatory in voting and community involvement. I was a Rotary Exchange student,
Right, you
world
went to
involvement.
Denmark as an exchange student.
Yes, my grandfather immigrated from Denmark to the U.S., and I was fortunate to go back, and I met many of our family, and because he had 6 brothers and a sister, and only 2 immigrated to the U.S. So I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, we were talking about how you started in 2008,
Oh,
the
yes.
International Women Artists
Yes.
Salon.
Yeah. So I had some a death around me in the 2002, and the realization that at 38 I had become something at age 18 I said I was not going to become, waiting around for commitment. I was going to have my own, career and travel the world, etc. And then, at 38, I realized I was a volunteer holic, a workaholic. I was doing everything for everybody else. And I put my passions of my photography, the arts, international cultural exchange to the wayside. And so it was a wake up call. And, and also along with that, so I left, as I say, my old life, went to Europe for most of 2004 to get re in touch with who I am, and
You did a version of what we call Eat, Pray, Love.
yes, yes. When the book came out, I was like, darn it, I didn't write it soon enough.
Right. It could have been you.
I had already just gone through all of that, but it was an amazing experience, and you just kind of realize what's important in life. I mean, I always knew what was important, but it really hits you in the head. You could have sort of surfacey, but going deeper, what's really happening in our country, what's really happening in terms of dialogue with the wealthy and the people in need, and all of that, and politics. And so I became a bit of an activist at the same time. And
And this
so
is
when I,
interesting. This happened around you turning 40.
yes,
Wow.
yes. And, I didn't have a kid, so I was very fortunate to be able to explore and leave my old life, as I said, and go explore and land in New York. And I have an undergraduate business degree. I have this networking, social prowess from my mom's side, the entrepreneurial, creative side from my dad, and it was all coming together. And plus my activism of, hey, we need to really raise up women's voices again. I mean, we really need
Right.
to grab a hold of humanity and save it, basically. And so that's how I formed International Women Artists Salon, with the idea of, let's bring women creatives of all generations, all backgrounds, all stages of career, different art forms, from music, dance, theater, fabric arts, architecture, even food design, and find ways that we can connect, raise each
Yeah.
other up, share resources, make the the journey shorter in terms of learning things. Like when I came to New York, it took me about 2 years going to all these wonderful things, from NIFA to Q Foundation, learning about the business of art, uh, finding out what's happening in the gay community and LGBTQ community and all that.
I know,
Not
it's
not
amazing, and
everybody.
it's all here in New York. I mean, you can be at a different gallery show, you can be at a meeting, you can be with an activist, you can, anything you can think of, you can point to and you can go to.
Yeah,
I've been here for forever. That's the reason. I don't know what I would do with myself if I were elsewhere.
yeah, exactly. There's so many opportunities, but not,
Yes.
especially artists. Not every artist has those skill sets. And so I thought, if I find, bring together the women art creatives, and also non-binary women identifying, um, to shorten that learning curve, right? Okay,
Right.
you come to New York, navigating the art scene, navigating, the different opportunities here in New York, as well as raising up each other's voices, collaborating together. I've had what I call now Salonista gatherings, and I would have anywhere from 5 to 12 Salonistas there, and they always talking about serendipity and the universe bringing people together. I swear to God, Wendy, every single one of those for 10 years, once a month, almost different people every month.
And they all work together.
Every
Wow.
gathering, different disciplines, different ethnicities, they just came together naturally. And then
Right.
people started collaborating. A writer would collaborate with illustrator, and they created a book together. A dancer and a poet had a series with poetry and dance together. So, and the other thing too is we're all working towards the same thing, with parity, equality, etc. So rather than each discipline really fighting the fight, so to speak. Let's bring all the different disciplines together,
Absolutely.
shorten that fight time period of success.
There's also an incredible power, right, about working with other people to get things done. It's interesting to me because one of the things I read in your bio, you had worked in advertising, and I wanted to ask you about that because it seems to me that would be, like corporate advertising, a very different scenario than the one you're describing with the International Women's Artist Salon.
Yes, I've been very fortunate. I grew up in a small town. I was able to do everything, and I was the type of person I wanted to do. So I had all these different experiences, and wonderful mentors,
You did,
as
yeah.
well as fantastic supportive family, and it's gosh. Wendy, I have so much going through my brain sometimes.
No, I know that's
it's
because
like,
you're an artist. So what I was asking that was interesting to me because you put together these salons, right? And
the
they
advertising,
were once a
yeah.
month, and the women all came together. They could be all different. They would still all come together. I often find in the world that's not that. I don't know. I guess I can say finance or business or whatever. For me personally, I can walk into a room filled with women like that and I don't feel good. And it's
Yeah.
not me being paranoid. I don't feel a connection. I find it like you talked about it, how looking around, seeing these groups of people that you had really brought together and they're all talking with each other. I'm talking about the opposite of that. That's been my experience out of the art world. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, a lot of the different industries, have that societal norms and pressures that I think make women need to conform to a certain way and not
Or
tap into that
be competitive with each other.
Yeah. And I think opening that up, and I find it's now burgeoning in the sense of a lot of different industries are bringing in the arts, whether it's a workshop or partnering or whatnot, and giving women and men an opportunity to see how the arts can be healing, can be engaging, can build additional avenues of opportunities, etc. So I think it's beginning, and to break down those long-standing societal business,
social norms,
norms. It's happening. I think once we start seeing the success, we're like, we want it to happen quicker. So when we get in a room and you don't see that happening, it's frustrating. Especially people like us who work that way, and you want to just kind of sometimes grab people's necks and say, no, not that way. Come on, let's.
It's not going to work that way. Now you graduated from Cornell.
Yes, I had so many wonderful opportunities and just learning from each of those. And interestingly, every job that I've had, I've been able to use my creativity, oftentimes not knowing that I was using my creativity. I was thinking, oh, I'm not really, doing my photography or anything. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, I just created a team. I just created a program, of people and policies or procedures, So that's another thing that people can tap into. They think, oh, I'm not a creative, or I'm not an artist. Well, I dabble in this, whatever. If you are building something, and especially if you're passionate about it,
right?
You are creative. Whether it's food arts, architecture, design, building teams, finding those commonalities.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. You just have to learn how to recognize them too. I always took a lot of that for granted. I just thought everybody could do that. I never looked at what I could do as being anything special. And I've come upon that it is special. And once I came upon that, I was able to attract other people that were special in the same way, that didn't think that they were either, Okay, we're all part of a community and it's all about supporting each other. I want to just read something that I wanted to talk to you about that you wrote in your bio. Fine art photographer, self-taught, of course, but specializes in capturing the intersection of languages and dimension through full-frame, non-manipulative imagery of cultural environs. I need to know. I'm going to make you elaborate on those words. Tell me what you mean.
Nothing like a run-on sentence or a descriptor, right?
No, it's not. It's really descriptive. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I need her to tell me about this.
Sure. Interestingly, I think I received my first camera from my parents, maybe around 4 or 5. I can't remember the exact moment. But I do remember somewhere around kindergarten into first grade, propping up my boyfriend at the time against a tree and taking a little portrait, and capturing the flowers and it really ingrained early on the beauty of the world and capturing the beauty. And I didn't have a desire to be in the dark room. I actually had a chemical phobia, so I didn't,
really
want to be, so it was kind of a two-pronged thing. I love being out. I love being out experiencing, whether it's nature or community, people. And so that's the part of photography I like. I like to be in an environment, whether it's indoors, outdoors, nature, urban, and immersing oneself in the moment, in that environment, and seeing what's happening. And I could be walking through a particular spot, and then all of a sudden something catches my eye. I'm like, oh, got to capture that, and then I also learned over time when I got my first digital camera, I was like, okay, I'm still going to be a truist. I'm only taking pictures. I'm not going to manipulate them on the computer later. So that's why I say in camera, use existing lighting.
Non-manipulative.
And I don't manipulate the images. And it can, in the intersection, and this sort of speaks to what we're talking about with community and engagement. It's not just people. It's like, how is everything intersecting, engaging?
Yeah.
The light, the movement through a space, whether it's wind and trees or people, to the language. What's on the billboard, graffiti, signage,
all of it. Yeah.
Somebody's t-shirt, all that different language, history and contemporaryism. How are those intersecting? And then that leads into planes and dimensions, because you have shadows and reflections. And if you see some of my photographs, they look like you can't tell what the plane is. They sort of kind of merge together. Right. And I've had many people say, oh my God, this looks like a manipulated photo. And it's not. It's just how I was seeing it. And
I'm sure you set them straight on that.
Well, that's why I had to write it in my bio, because that's part of my shtick. It's like you're seeing what I captured, and
right. You're seeing what I saw. It's not what I changed after I saw it. And that's a very good point, which is why I wanted you to explain what you wrote, because so much now, my God, Heidi, now like more than ever, it's like the AI thing. I say to myself, it's over, and the fat lady sang, right?
Yeah.
That expression, but that's what it feels like, because nothing that you see now will be the truth. What you're telling me, when I look at your photographs, I'm going to see the truth. I'm going to see what you saw and you captured. Now there's nothing that you or I are going to look at. How do we know if it's the truth?
That's very true. And I think that's what's going to be really important for us to engage. So not only representing art, we're engaging about the art. How was it created? Or about this topic, who we're talking, what are we looking at in terms of our sources, the research, it's not just plop, oh, do we believe it or not believe it? But it's at that engagement, the discussion. And that's what's missing, especially in our education system. I grew up in the 70s and, graduated in 1982. You're trying to get the grades to pass your regents and move on to the next class. There's hardly any engagement discussion in a class.
Right.
And so when people, especially Americans, you become an adult not having any of that experience.
It's different in Europe, and you know this better
Yes.
than anyone.
Yeah.
They get that discussion and that enrichment. Often that's more important than
Absolutely.
us pressuring ourselves to learn for the SATs or the PSATs. Or I remember we were in school at the same time, that all important Regent scholarship. It became about that. I don't remember discussions. I remember having, as you did, things just basically shoved down our throat with no rhyme or reason. They use the word curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And when I was an exchange student, luckily I was just young enough. Excuse me. I graduated when I was 17, so I was still able to be a Rotary exchange student, get my full 4 years in, be an exchange student, and I turned 18 in Denmark. So I got my whole 4 years. I was like, thankful for that. But I'll tell you, Wendy, when I went to the second year of a 3-year high school, which is called gymnasium in Denmark, because the third year is gymnasium is almost like college. It's like if you decide you're going to go on to high school, you're committed to going on to college. Very, very serious. So they put me in the second year instead of the third year, even though I was a top student and But it was very eye-opening. And you walk into a class and they're talking about, having engagements about topics.
Yeah.
They had a religion class that talked about all the different religions, so that you understood things. Even the math, I thought, math will be great. It's just numbers. I think it was the worst class I could try to figure out, because it was like they're talking. Oh my God, what are they talking about? Yeah.
That's really interesting. I was never a math student, but I'm meeting now more and more artists, especially audio artists, that use algorithms in their work. Scientists that are using mathematics within their work, and artists that paint using mathematics in their work. And that's something I still have a very hard time understanding, because my brain, when I hear math, just completely shuts down. I was terrible at it. I didn't understand it. I remember being in second grade thinking if I could just go back to kindergarten and start all over again. And I felt that way, Heidi, my entire life. I just never got that. But that block was more in my head. I'm a critical thinker, and now I apply that to numbers, and I'm very good with numbers and finance now, something that I could have never predicted. It sounds to me with the European education, there's just more avenues open to you.
Absolutely. And you learn more. They knew more about American history as well as world history than I knew. They all knew 2 or 3 languages, etc.
Right.
And it's just mind-boggling. But yeah, it's. I just wanted to mention the crossover of science and math and the arts. Yeah. I read an article, and I can't remember his name. Lear, I think might have been his last name. It was an article about how scientists are discovering more, and the more you discover, the less they know, because there's, oh my God, you're opening up a whole nother frontier.
Absolutely.
And they were finding artists exemplifying many of the discoveries that they were coming across. So they were starting to engage with artists or different art forms or different methods to help explain this, not only to themselves and the scientific community, but also to the layperson. So I did a symposium in 2010. I'm dying to do another one. I had scientists, mathematicians, artists, a spiritualist, all on this panel, and some of them, like, they're a scientist and a musician, or they were a scientist who were using artists in their research.
Right. What did you call the panel? What was the name of it?
It is, I believe it's on my YouTube or my Facebook. What did I call it back then?
You were combining a bunch of different disciplines because they were all working off of each other.
Absolutely. And that this was this new thing that was being discussed about that crossover of, you've always heard about how nature is is art, right? And the symmetry and the design.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about
So
that.
that crossover, because the nature and science and the math, the probabilities, the proportions, all of that, and having that come together and helping people learn more. Like, so if they're not a math person, they're not a science person, using the arts to help understand things. And so I think there's
totally brilliant. Totally brilliant.
Yeah.
It took me a while to understand that. I give tours at the Explorers Club. I'm a member of the Explorers Club. And the year we started bringing artists in for World Oceans Week, I'm like, what the heck does that have to do with the ocean? Or how, this has got nothing to do with science or academics. Well, boy, was I wrong. And I will admit when I'm wrong. That was such a narrow way of thinking, because when I want to get a point across to someone or they're not understanding it, I can use an art example to do that if they're not grasping the science. And the more that we cross-pollinate all of these disciplines, the better we will be as a society. What I feel like this discussion that we're having, I feel in this country now, it's getting very scary, where this kind of discussion won't exist because it's going to be shut down. It'll be, there'll be New York, there'll be California, there'll be other places, but there's going to be tons of places where it won't be part of curriculum, where critical thinking and combining art and science and opening up your ability to think that way, it's going to be shut down. I really feel that way.
Absolutely, and it always has been to a certain extent, and now we're seeing, how it had been and how it's going to get even worse.
Right.
And that's why it's really, really important for us as artists to engage. Here again, my word engage, with different peoples, different ideas, different disciplines across different industries, to have these dialogues, not only in the urban settings or the academic settings,
absolutely,
in small communities, in schools. There's so much happening, Wendy, with teachers who are still trying to do this, bringing in the arts and science. So us as artists, as well as other leaders in the different industries, is giving these opportunities for those dialogues to be happening. Support your local school board. Go to your school board and talk about the importance of STEAM, science, technology, engineering, math, and art and math, and how important it is to have the arts as part of that, not just STEM, but STEAM. And supporting your local communities. Because like you said, in the urban settings, we're always going to have this to a certain extent, but reaching out to the—
No, but you're totally right about every place in between. Triversity, our center, is located in Milford, Pennsylvania. We did a wonderful project and we're bringing it back again. It's called I Am What I Am, using visual, which would be artistic, and spoken word or written word, to define who you are, how you came upon discovering where you are on that LGBTQ spectrum, how it made you feel. And each person that participated in this program was able, through their painting or drawing or a poem or a story, to be able to express themselves. I think now this is something that happened outside of their schools, right? But I think this kind of thing should be all over. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. And even if you can't get into the schools, reach out to your local YMCA or your, even local, church. A lot of churches are losing, they have the buildings still, but they don't have a membership. So, partner with your local churches and use the fellowship halls or whatnot, and provide a spot if it's not happening in the schools. Find a building where you can meet. Even in the parks, there's so much. And that's one thing I'd like to mention with the International Women Artists Salon is I'm building it as a global platform. And what we're modeling here in New York, I've been partnering in different communities, small to large, different cultures, with the idea that we have these mini salons all over that we can sort of populate and help nurture these ideas and engagements.
Right. Exactly. Heidi, you won't believe it. We're down to our last 2 minutes.
I know. Oh my God.
I just love talking to you. What's up next for you?
Well, I'm bringing back some programs. I'm hoping to start our podcast, Salon Radio, again in the coming half of the year. I have over 250 archived shows of interviews with artists and arts groups. I've already brought back, and I say brought back because COVID kind of disrupted things, Salon Lounge Music at Funkadelic Studios, which is in Hell's Kitchen, a woman-owned and run music studio place. And so first Sunday of every month, it could be any 4 artists as well as an arts group are present. They're paid a stipend because I think it's important to pay our artists, and they get to share their work in progress or whatnot. So first Sunday of every month, 6:30 at Funkadelic Studios.
And can people, I perused your Facebook site. You have a lot on there. Can they find out more about all of this by going to your Facebook site?
Yes. So International Women Artists Salon, the full name, on Facebook and YouTube. You can see some of our shows and panel discussions. Also, Instagram is shortened to Women Art Salon.
Okay.
Follow myself, Heidi Russell Global, and Heidi Russell on Facebook, and looking to my site, both my personal site and the salon page is actually in some beta movement, taking it to the next level. So stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned, right? Thank you. A delight talking to you. I always like to end my show by taking a picture. So look into the camera. I love taking pictures off the computer. I know it's pokey, but
great. No, it's great. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for this opportunity.
No, thank you. Make sure you stay in touch with me. Let me know what you're doing. I go to everything, and I've got a gazillion friends that go to everything.
Well, look forward to engaging more with your community and all our listeners out there. Reach out anytime. I'm a collaborator, so take care.
I can totally. You are a master collaborator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Good night. See you next week. Bye-bye.